Hey, I'm Dave, and you're listening to another episode of Dying to Listen podcast presented by the Disc Golf Dyers Guild. Today, we have another amazing guest dyer, Justin from Disc Golf Nerd. Welcome.
What's up? How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah.
We'll jump right into it.
Okay.
Again, I always ask this question, which I think is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask anyways. Do you play disc golf?
Of course, yes. For quite a while now. I never remember. I always joke that I have two different time frames. I have the other day and a long time ago. That's basically what I got to work with. But it's been quite a while since I started playing disc golf. Shortly after moving to Portland, Oregon, I played my first round. And then I think I did not play again for about a year or so. And then after that is when it really took off for me.
So what does disc golf mean to you?
Well, I always liked being outside. We grew up fishing and crabbing and, exploring the woods behind our apartments and all that kind of stuff. So we also got into Frisbee later on. As a teenager, I got into Frisbee with my friends. And then I remember even back in New York, like, playing with ultimate discs and like pick a tree kind of frisbee golf in those days. And I was not even aware that there was a real sport involved. But once I realized that there was, and my buddy took me out for it, and then like I said, the first time didn't go super well. And this is one of the things that I talk about on my channel a lot, is to explain to people like not to give beginners drivers and sharp edge discs that are like really tricky to throw and control, because I didn't really know what the hell was going on. I knew how to throw ultimate discs and stuff. So I didn't really enjoy that round, but then I tried it again. And then like once I started to learn how to control the discs and actually like pick out the discs I wanted and stuff, that's when it really took off for me. But something about just the combination of being outside, like in the woods and stuff, and also getting to play a game that's physical, and it's also like a solo sport, so I'm not really depending on other people. Nobody's like playing defense on me. I don't like that either.
Except for the trees.
Yeah, exactly. It's just about me and the course and like hanging out with my friends, and yeah, it's just great. It was something about it. It just really hooked me. And then again, like I said, once you get to that point where you know how to control the disc and you see it flip up just the way you want and come back and like, forget about when you get your first ace and that kind of stuff. It just, it really sinks in.
So how many aces do you have?
I forget my official tally off the top of my head. I think it's like not that many, like 7 or so. But I have a couple of good ones. So, I have one that's particularly sweet. At my favorite course, my favorite hole on the course, Stub Stewart State Park. It's about 340, and it's like way downhill turnover, basically downhill wooded turnover. And I aced that one a couple years ago. That was pretty sick. So I hang my hat on that. The other ones are, I have some little dinkers on the mini courses here and there, but yeah, I still remember my first one and a couple of them, but nothing too crazy.
That's awesome. And where are you located again?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the tour is in town right now. I didn't go out to the Beaver State the other day, but they played, and then the Portland Open, I think, is this weekend coming up.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what got you into disc dyeing?
Disc dyeing, I think part of it was spent a lot of years like not having very much money when we were young and first moved here, and I couldn't always go and do the things I wanted to do. I wasn't always out playing disc golf. That's kind of where the YouTube channel came from as well, is that like I needed something to do when I couldn't be out there fulfilling like what I wanted to do, something disc golf related that I could do at home. And I think that's one of the nice things about disc dyes and stuff, is like something that you can do that's related to disc golf, and it's like part of your passion. But if it's a rainy day, you have an injury, whatever it is, it's another way to engage in the sport that we love so much. And I like artistic endeavors. I never considered myself to be terribly good at any one thing, but like graphic design and all that kind of stuff I was interested in. So yeah, I honestly don't even know what it was so long ago now. I'm not even sure like what the first like inspiration really was. But when I first started doing disc dyes, it was like probably people doing like shaving cream beds, I would have to assume, because that's a pretty old technique. And then it was like hand cut stencils, man. That was it. It was people were doing hot black, black RIT dye, hot dips on the stove, and hand cut stencils. And I didn't have the skill to really mess with that, so I actually developed my own technique with using electrical tape. Just pinstriping, basically. I would do different layers of pinstripes, and then I got to the point where I could do a number of different types of patterns and stuff that way. And it was just a way to kind of customize my own discs. And then I made a video about it. And I've definitely seen, there could be parallel thinking or whatever, but I've definitely seen over the years, like on Facebook Marketplace, and like, oh, that's like, that disc is like clearly tape pinstriped. Like, maybe they saw the video, maybe they didn't. I've seen some in the used bin at the Disc Golf Depot, like, oh, I wonder, it looks very similar to what I used to do, stuff like that. So that's kind of been fun. But that was my first really foray into it was doing that. And I just had black RIT dye. That's all I had. And it was the old powdered RIT when it still worked. They changed the formula sometime after that.
So it sounds like you've been around for a while. Do you remember like the year that you did your first dye or started dyeing?
What's funny is since I've chronicled so much of this on YouTube, I could just look up when I posted that video. I'll give us the best idea, because I honestly don't even know off the top of my head half the time.
Who needs memory when you got technology?
Exactly. Yeah. I wonder if I even search electrical tape. But yeah, I wanted to do stencils and stuff, and that was before there was like stencil cuttering machines and stuff, or maybe there were, but I for sure didn't have them. So yeah, that video is 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
According to YouTube, I posted that in 2012, March 18th, 2012, disc golf dye tutorial, cheap disc golf designs using electrical tape. And yeah, I did like the discs there in this video are funny. It's like old flex buzzes. It's all stuff that like doesn't exist anymore. A Z Putt R. Remember the Putt R? It's an old, super old disc. So yeah, it's been a long time. Over 10 years then.
That's crazy. How many views are on that video?
That one I think has like 40,000 or so, because it's so old.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's not good. Like, there's nothing good about it. But yeah, 40,000 on that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say there wasn't I know there wasn't a whole lot of content back in the day for disc dyeing. So
no, there wasn't. I mean, when I started my YouTube channel in general, it was me and Terry, basically. Like, we were like the disc golf guy. We were like the two of the oldest channels. I think he started his like a little bit before mine, and then I think Central Coast started a little bit after me, maybe, or something. And those are like, some of the oldest channels that are still active. And still posting content. But yeah, there was nothing out there. I mean, that video was literally like, I filmed it and then I just uploaded the file to YouTube. There was no editing. I had none of that. I had none of it. So yeah, it's old school stuff. And I couldn't even tell you where I learned any of it, the RIT dye or any of that. It must have been on like forums or something at that time. I really couldn't even tell you where I saw it. I'm sure other people had videos, on whatever, but I don't recall seeing any disc golf dye content in those days that I can remember.
So I commend you for doing your YouTube channel for so long, because a lot of people do it then they just stop. And
Yeah,
also
that's
for doing disc dyeing this long. What keeps you dyeing discs?
Let's see. So to go through the progression of it, after the electrical tape, I think I took quite a while after that where I really didn't do much dyeing and stuff. And I think what got me back into it was seeing some of the new techniques that people were doing. And I remember watching a video from The Differences doing it, and he had some kind of a person on doing like a lotion swirl, just like a really colorful lotion swirl dye. And I was like, hell, I could try that. That looked fun. And it was probably the same kind of thing. In the Pacific Northwest, sometimes it's rainy and windy for a week, and there's just no golf to be had. So it's nice to have other things to do. And I think I went to the dollar store. I tried to buy lotion. They didn't have lotion. So I ended up getting conditioner, I think, the first time. And I tried that. And that ended up with some cool results. And then I tried shampoo as well. And that created some kind of cool results. And then I started, kind of developing that technique over time. And I thought I was making up my own stuff. Now, I don't know if other people were using shampoo and conditioner in those days either. But once again, let's go take a look when I posted that video now. But Yeah, so I wanted to learn lotion lotion dyes, and then I didn't quite actually make that happen at the time. And then I just kind of took off learning how to do that, and I learned a number of different ways how to do that. And that one wasn't that long ago, actually. So there was quite a gap in between. Now that I think about it, because this lotion dye video was up in 2019. So yeah, quite a few years in between the two. I think actually no, in the middle there I learned spin dyeing. That's right, and I had quite the rig for that. I had a Lasky like box fan, like the classic white American box fan. Took the grate off of that, right? Blue poster tack, 4 pieces of blue poster tack, tack the disc straight onto the blades of that. And now I could have just spun it with my hand in retrospect, but I used an IKEA dimmer switch that I could slow the fan down basically. And then I learned how to do that. And that was around 2014 or so, because I remember I bought discs at 2014 Worlds here in Portland that I was dyeing that technique on at the time. But I never really got very good at that as well. You know, I've always like I dabble and I like try to experiment and learn stuff, but I never really like hunker down and like master anything. I'm too crazy. I make a video about it, and then I kind of move on to something else. But yeah, so then I started doing that. But then more recently, it's been a lot of glue. Ever since I started doing clear glue, it's my favorite dye technique I've ever used by far. Just not even close. The patterns and the textures you can get, it's just unlike any other technique that I ever used.
So, do you think you have a signature style? And if so, what would that be?
No, probably not. You know, like I said, I've tried so much. If anything, maybe like something to do with pinstriping is kind of something I like to do. Because I've started to. I kind of came full circle, and I'm like, let me pinstripe it with electrical tape, and then I'll dip it in glue, and then I'll peel that off and have like the kind of blank space there. And that kind of stuff. But yeah, not really. I like colorful designs. I never had like a ton of colors, and I've never been like, oh, let me go buy a box of 100 white discs either. So it's like I'm dyeing whatever discs I have. So I kind of have to work with the colors, to like make it work. So no, I never really felt like I have a set pattern that I like to do. And I made a video about it recently of like how I set up my compass points to like build a glue bed that has a lot of color layering and stuff. But I don't, I'm not sure I would really call that a signature style. And then there are other weird experiments in there as well. I also learned that you can dye discs with beets. I tested that. If you use beet juice, it will, here's what's trippy, right? So it will dye the disc, but it dyed it yellow, like highlighter neon yellow, red beet juice, soaking the disc like an old school hot dip. I grated the beet like all in there, and I simmered it down for a while, and it turned like crazy orange, like highlighter or yellow, like a kind of bright yellow. And it still was fine as well. And then I also did turmeric before that, which dyes it gorgeous, bright neon yellow, but it fades out really fast. But it's beautiful. For the first like 2 or 3 days, I was like so enamored with it. I couldn't believe it worked. But yeah, if I go grab one of those discs now, you maybe could see a little bit of the color, but not a whole lot.
So more importantly, how did it smell?
It smelled wonderful. It smelled great. And actually, that was another thing about doing the shampoo dyes. I use that Suave, like super cheap Suave dollar store coconut shampoo. And the disc would smell beautiful afterwards and have that like kind of coconutty artificial smell to it. And I was like, that's interesting. I almost thought about that. Like, could you ever develop that? Could you make like a dye medium that not only dye the disc in, you could have like essence of whatever different like scents in there. If you want it to be orange scented, you could do that. It kind of reminded me of when I was a kid with Pogs. I don't know if what generation you're in with, but yes. we had Pogs, and I had a Slammer. Kids are gonna have to Google this. Somebody's gonna read this off a cave wall somewhere. But yeah, I had a Slammer that was banana scented or whatever, and it kind of reminded me of that. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's kind of fun. It's a side benefit, I guess. Unless you don't like that smell, then you're out of luck.
Yeah, I know a few dyers had discussions with that, like putting essential oil into the medium
Okay. Yeah, I think that would work.
So when you're about to putt and you need to calm, you have like that calming essential oil. You'll take a sniff
Yeah,
and
exactly.
throw it.
Exactly. Why not? I know some companies have done that too. Like Latitude experimented with, blueberry scented judges or purers or something at some point. Or I think I had one, but it smelled good for a little while, and then it didn't last anywhere near like soaking a disc in shampoo for 2 days. It has a lot better smell on that.
Where did you get the idea to dye with the vegetable and spices?
Turmeric happened because, I mean, and just anybody who cooks with turmeric, it's a wooden spoon. If you drip it on the countertop, it gets that bright kind of neon yellow, and even some plates will even take on color from it. And I worked in the kitchen industry for like 10 years as well, so I have a lot of professional cooking experience. And so I think just one day at work or something, I had done something with turmeric, and we were like coloring tofu with it for like vegan eggs or some kind of Portland thing. And I was like, man, I wonder about that. I had a matte white kind of. It was basically their deco dyes without any print on it, or like a Dymax, but blank Dymax, pretty much. Sick medium to dye on too. I think like the blank canvas dyes that they had, a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. DD and Latitude had some blank canvas ones that are bottom stamped and they were white, really nice to dye on. It was basically like that, and I did a pinstripe, and I just mixed it with white vinegar, real heavy, and just kind of brushed it on until my mixture was gone. Let it sit for a while and wiped it off. And not only did it glow like crazy, it was actually UV reactive as well. So it was super bright yellow. And once again, anybody who's interested can watch all this on YouTube if you want. I made a video on that, of course. And it looked awesome for a little while, and then, kind of faded pretty quickly. The beet one, though, looks exactly the same right now as it did when I pulled it out of that beet juice. It's like just a kind of blank yellow color. It's real trippy. That was weird. I didn't think it was working at all. And then for it to dye it and then go, okay, it's not pink at all. It's not even close to red or pink at all. I almost wondered if it was more a chemical reaction that happened with the pigments in that opto. I dyed a junior judge or something, like a small opto mini judge. I almost wonder if it was something more of like a chemical reaction that happened there with some kind of enzyme that's in the beet juice, heated up with the color. I don't know how or why it turned yellow. If anybody knows why.
Vaguely remember seeing something with that, someone like dyeing clothing or something, and it was yellow. I was like, boy, that is weird.
Yeah, it might just be that's the pigment that actually sticks, and then the nice reddish one. It'll dye your hands real well, which is what made me think of that. If you spill beet juice on a white shirt, you're in trouble. But so yeah, not so much none of the red color, but it did dye it, which is interesting.
Yes. Well, it's the secrets that the dye companies don't want you to know.
Exactly.
What they use in their dyes.
Exactly.
The neon lemon zest, it's just turmeric.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is it's funny that you bring that up, because neon lemon zest is like my favorite color ever. I got a little jar of that. I think I even got like samples from Pro Chemical and Dye sent me like a little sample pack for YouTube. And I did a video where I, did a spin dye and a shampoo dye and a couple different techniques just to test it out and see how it worked. And that the first time I saw what that yellow looked like on a white disc, I was just so hooked on it. It's just such a beautiful, bright yellow color. I've always really liked that one. So it's rare. If I'm dyeing a disc that's like white to start with, it's very rare that color's not in there somewhere.
So what are your favorite colors besides neon lemon zest?
I use the neon lemon zest. I like iDye Poly black. I still use iDye Poly straight up black. I like the iDye Poly blood red. I find that one's just a really dark, I don't know if it's like the crimson red or whatever it's technically called, powdered one. That one's just a sick color. For the conditioner and shampoo dyes, I was using all liquid RIT, so I only had 3 colors for that. So it was basically any combination I could do with the sapphire blue, the pink, and then the like sun yellow or daffodil yellow or whatever it was. So I pretty much only used 2 colors at a time for the most part with that one. And so that was a different story. But for my glue dyes, Neon Lemon Zest yellow, I have a custom blue that I mixed together with a couple of different things. So I never had a blue I really liked, so I kind of tweaked one. I have some of the other neon colors now. I really like the fluorescent pink as well. I believe is the one that I liked out of the neon set. It's kind of disappointed with some of the other neon colors, and I've heard, I don't know if you've experienced this. I've heard some people say they're a little bit more tricky to get the full vibrance out of them depending on the technique you use. So I didn't really like the purple and the orange and stuff. I was pretty disappointed with those. I use the lilac from Prochem as well. I use the radical red is another color I use a ton. And for whatever reason, the original mix I did of that radical red, it always kind of looks like scaly almost. It's hard. It like provides this texture where it's not a solid color. It always has these like little lines and almost like veiny type lines in it. So I like to use that one to try to kind of create pockets of negative space around, because it's not just like a saturated color. Where the eye-dye red, the blood red, it just grabs so heavy. So yeah, those are probably my favorite colors, but the eye-dye poly black has been probably the color that's been used in more of my dyes than anything else, just because it goes all the way back to after RIT, that's what I switched to, and it worked so much better for those hot old school hot dips and stuff. It worked way better. So I still use it now in my glue.
Yeah. No, I've heard a lot of people have issues with the neon purple that it just doesn't take well.
Mm-hmm. I was shocked. I did a test dye. I had one of those blank canvas fuses. I was all stoked. The bed looked sick. I put it in there, and then like a lot of the colors really didn't grab. It was strange, and it seemed like some of the pigments actually like settled out. Like the blue from the purple seemed to kind of grab, but not the other one. And I even did some experiments like mixing it more or less and like dripping it on the bottom of the disc to see how it looked, and it never looked purple. It was always like some kind of somewhere not quite right. It just, I couldn't really get it to do its thing. It seems like it works best with cell dyes. I've seen some like cell dye folks that seem to get good results out of that. But yeah, anyway, it's just kind of a dud for me. But I think I use a few. I definitely have other colors in there. The neon lime green is pretty nice. I like that one as well. It's pretty subtle. It's not quite as punchy as I might like it to be, but it's still nice. It's good. It's a good color to have.
So let's talk about some of your clear glue beds. I'm curious, what do you use for your mixture for your dye for those beds?
Okay, so I go really simple, and I just have those glass eyedropper bottles. They seem to be somewhat controversial. Some people don't like them. I find they just take maintenance. Basically, you have to kind of just keep an eye on the levels in them and top them off as needed. But I mean, I've had them completely dry out to just pure sludge because all the acetone's gone, and just put it back in there and, mo tussin, as they say, ready to go. But yeah, so I just use I put a little layer in there and I just fill it up with acetone. I have like those like turkey baster or marination, like the big plastic kitchen syringes you can buy. I find those really easy to draw up and control the acetone, just because, if you drip a little bit and it hits like this tiniest little fleck of dye and then drips onto the floor or something, it just like spreads like crazy. So yeah, that's pretty much it though. I don't add anything special. I just kind of straight up acetone in there. I shake it up, and I've used the same, mix over and over and over again, and just keep topping it off. As long as there's still powder in there, it seems to be fine.
Do you have any specific ratios for dyed acetone, or just kind of wing it?
Not really. No, not really. I find essentially what happens for my experience is like I get a good layer of the dye in there. It never all sinks in, so there's always like that sediment at the bottom. And as long as I kind of maintain that status quo, it seems to continue to work. Because like some more of that sediment seems to kind of mix in. And it just keeps rocking, I don't know. I would switch it up if it wasn't working, but and I'm not doing the volume that some of the guys you talk to are doing. Again, this is more of a hobby. I more tried to learn the glue and get good at it, not only for myself, but I'm always thinking about making a video about it. So I dyed one disc and then I made a tutorial while I dyed the next one, and with my glue beds. And so I kind of learned with the viewers. And then I circled back once I figured, had a better understanding of it, and posted a newer video more recently. And that one shows, like I mentioned earlier, kind of how I set up the bed with like a kind of a compass pattern, and then I fill in those gaps in more or less a symmetrical way before I start doing any kind of swirling or moving around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just straight up acetone powder. I just kind of eyeball it. And that's just how I've always done it, and it seems to work fine. And like I said, certain colors, like the some of them like stay kind of grainy, and they never quite mix in the way I do it. But I don't mind that because it provides some differences in terms of the textural stuff that I can get.
Yeah. If you feel like experimenting, I would highly recommend adding, if you're going to do a new mixture or if one of your bottles is dried out, I think it works better for neon colors, but adding a little bit of water and letting that mix up, because my understanding the dye is water soluble, so that helps break and dissolve the dye before you put in the acetone.
Okay.
And I did a test with neon lemon zest with a mixture that had water in it and one that was just straight up dye and acetone. And the one that had water in it dissolved before I put the acetone in. The saturation was much better.
Interesting. That's fascinating. Yeah, I might look into that. That's actually something that Bobby from Difference is doing. He mentioned that to me when because I hit up a few different people. I have a couple of guys that I DM, like DeLong. I'll hit him up and ask him questions about stuff, and Bobby and stuff. So I hit up Bobby. I was like, any insider info on these neon colors? And that's something that he said was like putting like a little bit of even like boiling or very, very hot water in there and shake it up real good, and then add the acetone to that. And I didn't even really think about that. I don't think I ended up trying it though either. But yeah, I'll keep that in mind for sure. I was telling you before we started recording that I've been out of glue for a little while, so I'm just kind of like letting it go. But maybe I'll try to revitalize my jars with a little water next time and see what that does. I'd be curious. Speaking
of glue, what glue do you like to use?
I use whatever the store brand from not Target, Michael's. It's like $12 or so. Red, has a red label on it.
Is it the colorations?
I could go look at it. I have like a reused jug sitting over here, but I'm not super picky. I think I first used Elmer's because I had Elmer's school glue. I think we had a little, or that's all they had at the store that I went to or whatever. But yeah, ever since then I've kind of determined it doesn't seem to matter a whole lot in terms of the glue I use. So I've just been getting whatever's cheap, and that stuff from Michael's is good. I can go get a couple gallons of that and it's fine.
Yeah, I've noticed the price is slowly going up for clear glue.
Oh, really? Yeah. I wouldn't be that surprised. I mean, the price of everything's going up so much, but I wouldn't be that surprised. It's also like, I think people really like to make like slime, like they make like glitter slime, or there's another like big time craft that people do with it besides just like, disc dyes and stuff. But yeah, I think about that. I was worried about that getting into glue dyes. It's like, how is the cleanup going to be with this? Like, is this just going to be a total disaster? And it actually kept me from wanting to get into it because I don't have a garage or anything. All this takes place in my apartment. My people be like, "Oh, you have a shop?" And it's like, "Yeah, it's a card table I got at the Goodwill. I set up in my living room. That's my shop. That's where I work on bases. That's where I repair drum parts. Like, that's where I do all of my different things that I do." So yeah, I was like a little bit hesitant to get into it, but in actuality, it's really not all that different from anything else in terms of dye. But I do wonder about that with guys that do like big volume, and are like doing this for a living. Like, what the hell do you do with all this glue all the time? It must be wild to just be constantly scooping glue out of containers and oh man, it must be, you gotta have some room.
I know people pour the glue back into the jugs. What I do is, because I don't dye a whole lot, so I don't really, not able to reuse the glue, is I line my pan, so I use a 9-inch cake pan, and I line it with press and seal. So when I'm done, I just basically take it up, throw it away.
Oh, yeah. I've seen other people do that. Yeah. I believe, I think it's Nowski does
That's where I got the idea from.
Yeah, I think he even has like a visual aid underneath his that like helps him kind of see everything underneath there. Yeah, that's pretty slick for sure. I used to use, for a lot of my dyes forever, I had like a frying pan or like a wok or something like that I'd reuse over and over again for the shampoo dyes, and I've messed around with like shaving cream dome dyes and different things like that. I do like the spinning shaving cream. I'm into that. I did a few of those. I made a video about that. That's a pretty fun technique as well. Recently I switched to like aluminum cake pans, and it's just a giant difference. And even over like the ultimate frisbee, a lot of people seem to like the ultimate frisbee for glue dyes, and whatever works. But I found the flat bottom aluminum, just like regular whatever 9 or 10 inch cake pans, to be so nice to dye in. It's so much easier to get a nice flat level surface to drop that disc in, and there's nowhere for it to go. It's just like perfectly sized. So once I get that disc in there, I'm getting almost the entire design on that disc. Where if you have the ultimate disc, it's nice, you can kind of pick and choose a little bit on one side or the other, but also then like if you have something sweet going on over here and over here, you kind of have to like go with one or the other. But yeah, I really like those. But I find I just kind of let it soak overnight, or for a few hours. And the glue does seem to break up pretty easy. It's not all that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I have had certain colors bleed onto other discs though, which I hadn't had with other techniques that I've done. Like in my bag and stuff, like they'll bang around, and like bottom of one disc will get some of that radical red. Maybe one of the reds that I have was doing that, which was kind of strange. But
do you clean your discs off after the glue bed?
yeah, I do, and I felt like I cleaned them pretty thoroughly as well. I had one that just no matter what I did, it just kept staining shit, and I think eventually I I actually cleaned it with like 100% rubbing alcohol or 99% rubbing alcohol, and like a ton of color came off.
Yeah.
And it actually turned the whole disc kind of orangey overall for whatever reason, but it ended up looking sick at the end of it, so I wasn't too worried about it. But yeah, I have had some. I think it's the iodide red. Certain times it just, I don't know if like little bits of it that don't dissolve, like the little little particles that haven't dissolved in my medium, kind of like get stuck in there. Maybe they get stuck into like a little crack. I'm not sure. One of those weird things, It's like there's a lot of little strange things about, and I'm sure anybody who's into it, occasionally you like pull a disc out of the bed and you're so pumped about the way it looked going in, and it's just like it didn't happen. It just didn't happen for you. Whether it's like some color didn't take, or some kind of a brown thing happened over here, or all kinds of weird mishaps can happen. You just kind of got to roll with it, I guess. That's art.
Yeah. Also, red is a bitch. It likes to get everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
You look at it wrong, it's like somewhere that you don't want
it. Yeah, for sure. I remember like filling up my dyes recently, and I have a big metal tray that I'll do that on. And you look at it and you look like, oh, maybe there's like a couple of flecks of color. Maybe I spilled a little bit, and then like take a wet rag and you wipe it, and you have this crazy rainbow. Like, oh my God, this thing was covered in dye. Like one hand of this on a couch or something would have just been game over. But yeah, it's funny how like that little tiny particle, once it finds that moisture, it just blooms like so fast. It's trippy. It's fun.
So you dye in your apartment. You are a dangerous man. Have you had any fail stories dyeing any of your discs, either accidents or things that just were not as expected?
I've definitely had some howlers happen. One time I thought I had a really sweet setup for my shampoo bed, and I had multiple colors swirled through it, and the whole thing looked sick, and I think I just soaked it too long or something, and eventually the whole thing separated out, and it just came out this like crazy puke brown. That was just so gnarly and totally trashed one of my good throwers, I kept throwing it for a while. I think I might even still have it. I don't know what happened to it, but I kept trying to dye on. I tried to like some rescue dyes. I tried to dye on top of it. Oh, maybe I can get a different color to take and like kind of overwhelm it, and just nothing I could do to rescue that disc. That was a bad one. Knock on wood, I haven't had any like big spills or mishaps like that. Occasionally I'll spill some on my counter and stuff, but I find that if you're really, really quick with the acetone, you can kind of save it now and again. If you spill a little dye here or there, pure acetone, like it'll at least fade it out most of the way. So it's not like a total disaster, but yeah, I've definitely had my fair share. I was pretty bummed when I pulled that neon disc for sure. that we were talking about with the neon purples and stuff, because the bed looked so sick and I was all amped on my new colors and knowing how much I liked the lemon zest and the whole deal. And I pulled it out and I like scraped the glue and just like, oh man, you see all the colors scrape off. It's just such a heartbreaking experience. You're just like, ah, no, there's nothing underneath it. Like I just made a really cool like art project, you know. There's no disc after this. It's just like a abstract art goo in a puddle. I'm just like, oh no. But yeah, I'm sure we've all been there in terms of having it not go your way, but nothing too major, thankfully. And I don't do like commissions or anything, which I imagine there's a lot of pressure with that. You know, if you're doing a stencil on somebody's favorite disc or, you know, whatever, like I wouldn't want to do that. I usually would rather dye a disc and then sell it, or, you know, I'll do dyes for my friends that don't, you know, they're not too critical of or whatever. But yeah, the commission thing, that's a lot of pressure. I would be nervous to do that.
Yeah, and that's also a very bad time to experiment with new things.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was always my discs, and luckily, since, you know, the big thing that I do on the channel is disc reviews. You know, I've done more disc reviews than anybody in the world at this point. I cracked 300 different discs reviewed the other day. So I'm at like 305 or 306 or something like that now. So like over the years, I've had a decent, you know, a ton of plastic. I've tested probably well over, I'd have to guess at 500 molds, 400 molds or more. You know, if I've reviewed 300, over 300, there's a number that I never reviewed or whatever. So I've had a lot of plastic over the years, but I also like did a ton of like one in, one out, one in, one out. But luckily, I've always had something usually laying around that I can dye, you know, whether it's my own thrower or something that I did a review on and now it's left over. Or back in the day, I would just like, hey, I'm going to review this disc and I'm going to dye it anyway because, you know, and do both of them, both things at once, because why not?
So I'm curious, do you have a favorite type of plastic that you'd like to dye?
I'm not super picky. I've had great results on a lot of different types, but, you know, the classic stuff is always really fun to, you know, the Fusion, Gold Line, Star, you know, nice white star disc is always beautiful to dye. But I like to work with different colors on as the base as well. You know, like I don't always need to have a white disc, and that's probably what I've dyed the least of is like a nice, you know, fresh white star disc. Most of my dyes are on colors or various discs that I have whatever's laying around, especially if it's an experimental type of thing. But yeah, I've always found that Gold Line takes dye super well. Nice white Gold Line disc is always fun to dye for sure. But anything that'll take the dye, I'll work with it. You know, I'll try my best. I've never been able to get any kind of result on any kind of putter plastic. I know some people know some kind of weird secret to, you know, dye a P2 or something kind of. But yeah, I've never had anything work out with that at all. Sharpie is about the only way I know how to you know, snazz up a putter in any kind of way.
Pretty much. So where do you want to take your disc dyeing now? Is there like any new techniques or methods or mediums that you want to try?
I really like the stuff that people are doing with cell dyes. That's the kind of thing that I don't think I want to tackle in my house with the pouring of the cups and all that stuff. Yeah. Not the smartest method. I have a garage and I could do that down there, but it's not really set up for anything. It's really just like our car. But yeah, I would definitely like to learn how to do that eventually. I think people end up with some really sick techniques like that. I don't think I'll ever really be like a real hardcore stencil guy, but I have done a few of them. I've had my friends cut me stencils and stuff. I did one of the differences doing it. He sent me like his kit that came with a pre-cut stencil and all the stuff, and I did that. And I did I loved the way that came out. I actually did a glue bed for it, but I did the stencil as well. And that's one of my favorite dyes I've ever done. So I've executed a few stencils pretty competently, and I felt good about it. But I don't think I'll ever really mess with it. But I would like to learn how to do those really vibrant cell dyes, and I love the contrast. Like that's why I love the neon lemon zest and the black so much, is like I want that contrast there. I want the black in there. So like I love when people do like a mostly kind of black and then there's like the little bubble pockets of color. I love that. I would really like to learn how to do that eventually.
So do you know Jay Kennedy from Functional Discs? He's from Oregon. That's the only reason why I mentioned that. I forget where exactly he is from. I know
is he the one that has some discs for sale at the Disc Golf Depot? Do you know? Because if so,
I
then I have seen his work. Because there's some cell dies there and they're one of my sponsors for a long time in my local shop. There were
yeah
some cell dies. It might have been.
yeah they're like the halo cells with the rings of cells that kind of
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think so. That's cool.
well.
Yeah, it's not
Anyways,
something I ever really dug into, but I would definitely like to try that out.
very cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a must-have accessory for when you're dying?
I mean, I guess more than anything, you just have to have like the space, you know. Like my table is huge. Having like a counter or somewhere that you can leave the disc, like I don't know. In terms of like a tool that I always use in dyeing, probably those little plastic syringes are the most used, other than like a skewer, a simple skewer stick, I guess I could say. And those I use those for tons of other stuff around the house as well. And so yeah, I'd probably say something like the skewer stick I've used a lot, obviously for different swirling applications and stuff like that. But I don't really have like any like fancy tools or anything like that. I use some straws for my glue technique. I use some skewer sticks. I have some various things like that. I do have a record player for spin dyes that I found a record player. That's really nice to have. It beats the box fan pretty good.
Yeah.
You might expect. The one thing that was sweet about the box fan, I will say, is if you had the disc really well attached, you could get that thing moving and you could really kind of like buff it out, almost like a lathe kind of thing, where you give it the juice to full speed, and then I could wet it and kind of move it back and forth and almost like buff the color into that spot. So that was kind of cool. Other than that, I don't necessarily recommend it, but you work with what you got, I guess.
So
That's always been the way I operate, at least.
for your record player, how do you mount or lift the disc above the pin?
I got a cork trivet, pot trivet, basically. So it's just a little round piece of cork that you put on the countertop to put like a pot or pan on it, a hot pan on top of that. And then I just marked the center, dead center, popped a hole in it, and then I just popped that on there. So that's actually what the disc rests on. And it's beautiful too, because it's a nice cork surface. It's perfectly flat on top, and it's about the size of a disc. So the disc sits right on there. Actually makes it a little bit easier to center it than having the whole expanse or whatever, because you can kind of use the edge of it to kind of like line it up, eyeball it to the round shape that you already have to work with. So that's worked out really well, because I'm sure trying to remove that pin is a beast. I took like one swing at it with a hacksaw, and I was like, absolutely not. This is not happening. Yeah.
Well, if you're interested, I have Dave's Spin Die Jig Rig. Basically, it's a 3D printed item that I can send to you for free if you would like to test it out or use it or whatever.
Yeah, I might check that out. Sounds cool. Yeah, let me know. I'll be into that. Yeah, I could throw it on there and see if I can figure it out. I need to figure out a better dye mix for that. I don't think I was kind of just more recently, I was using the same mixes I use for my glue dyes. That didn't seem to quite do as well as I wanted it to. It left a lot of graininess on the disc, and that was causing some bleeding problems as well. Something about it was just like tough to clean all of it off of it after I was done. But yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
I might have to. Maybe I'll try the hot water and shake it up first, and then add a little acetone for my spin dye mixes. Try to get any of that grainy texture out of there.
I use the same mixtures that I use for my clear glue beds for my spin dyes. I haven't really noticed any issues with that. The other thing that you can try that is less harsh than acetone is the denatured alcohol.
Okay.
So it takes more time and layers to get the saturation, but you can do like easier to do fade, and it doesn't take as fast, so you can kind of work with it a little bit more.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll definitely look into that. I'm always trying to learn stuff and evolve the way I do it, and if I figure out some different way to do something, I'll completely move on, and switch over to that. Like I said, once I tried the aluminum cake pans, for example, there's no way I was going back to anything else after that. So yeah, I'll definitely look into that. That's cool. I really like that. When people do a really clean like rainbow spin dye or like to match a multicolored stamp or something.
Mhm.
I've always thought that was really cool. I've always really liked that technique, especially
Yeah.
when it's done well. It's really nice.
Yeah. So having all these guests on the podcast, it's fascinating to hear how they do the stuff that they do. And there's no wrong way to do something. Everybody has their own special way that works for them.
Hmm.
And it's just fascinating to hear all those different ways.
Yeah, for sure. What's some of the stuff that you're into? What's your background with dyeing?
So I like to do everything kind of like you. I've dabbled in everything. I haven't honestly dyed that many discs because I'm just so busy with other things. But yeah, currently like the clear glue bed because it just looks cool. You can get some good saturation with that.
Hmm.
Experimenting with Floetrol, like last month was the first time I've ever did that.
Yeah,
Fucking
yeah,
around and finding out.
that looks like a lot of fun for sure. I love glue. Like I love how intentional glue is because the other techniques I've done, like the shampoo or the conditioner, especially, you can control it to a point, but then a lot of it's like the luck of the draw in terms of like how things swirl, where the color pools up and all that kind of stuff. And I got some good results with that I'm still happy with. Still some of my favorite dyes I've done were with that conditioner technique or whatever. But something about like how intentional I can go with the glue, and I can take my time building the bed. Like it doesn't have to be like everything's in and like it's go time and you got like there's no rush. So like I can sit there if I want to. I can go bing 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 and get a disc in it and 5 minutes, and I could and it'd be fine if I want to do that. Or I could sit there for an hour and like really take my time and like really pinpoint where I want this color or that color. And I love the intentional aspect of that. There's no so much less randomness to it. It's more controlled, which is cool. And I think you can execute some really cool things that way.
Yes, I like having control of what I'm doing, and I don't like the randomness as well. So, yeah.
It can be fun when it works out awesome, like I said. But then when you pull out the one that's like, oh, it's so sweet, and you're like really happy, it's great. But then when you think it might be okay, and then you pull it out and it's just like brown, then you're like, maybe I should have done glue instead.
So, what do you use to manipulate your glue beds? Like, what methods or techniques?
I like the straw to a point. I basically go back and forth between. I have some large gauge straws, some thinner ones, and then I also will just use like a paper clip or something really thin or a skewer stick, depending on what I want. Sometimes I'll do a little of both because I find the skewer, obviously will get like more of a sharp angle, and I really like the way that the straw opens up the material and then it kind of closes back down onto itself. And I really like that visually. It's just kind of gratifying for me to do. So I'd probably use the straw more often. And often I just like to kind of go around one way and then back the other way is typically what I do. But, I've tried all kinds of different patterns, but I find most of the time I just really want to get the bed set up with all the colors that I want, and I want to try to avoid over mixing it. I don't like these guys that really get in there and really go to town on. That's not my aesthetic, at least, So I like to set up the zones of color and where I want them to be, get those swirls in there, but like try to stop before it gets too muddy or too busy. Is kind of my overall goal there. So a lot of time with the building of the color and the bed itself, less time manipulating it. But I think I like the straw best just because I really like the way it opens those channels, and sometimes you'll have a couple of different colors kind of lined up and you can blow through them and then they kind of drag together and then they close back down and then you have this like little rainbow in there. Like there's a lot of really cool things you can do with that I really like.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it is quite satisfying to blow in the glue bed and just watch it move around.
Yeah, there's something just nice about it. Maybe you're just real high on acetone and just kind of loving life.
That's it.
It's just evaporating off and you're just in the zone. I don't know, but yeah, there's something about it. It is quite gratifying, and sometimes I will put it on the record player, not even turn it on, but just so I can spin it real smooth, and then blow into it that way. Like as it's kind of moving around, I don't have to move the straw at all. I just kind of like tap it, spin it through, and then I can kind of just drag drag it around where I want it to be.
Right on.
Yeah.
How long do you typically let your disc sit in the clear glue bed for, and do you use heat?
I don't use heat. Just, no shame to anybody. People do what they want to do, but the idea of like hooking up like a heat lamp in my basement or something and then like leaving that alone for a long period of time is not something I would ever really do. Obviously, back in the day, I did on the stove, the hot dip dye, and that was also kind of scary, putting your disc you like in the boiling cauldron of black sludge. But yeah, I go 36 hours usually. I don't use heat. I just put them in, and I just try not to touch them at all. I just let them sit for quite a while. So I think 36 hours is usually my time. I've gone over that. I've gone crazy to see if 72 or something would like really let it sink in. But after I find it around 36, you're basically getting what you're going to get out of it. But I feel like 24 hours is usually fine. The glue and the conditioners were always a 24-hour soak for me. But yeah, I like to take the glue just that little bit longer. And then I'll pull it out, credit card, scrape the glue back into the pan. Disc gets rinsed off immediately, and I scrape the glue out into a different container, put them back in the sink, Dawn dish detergent, and then I just fill it up and just kind of let the water dissolve all the glue, because I really don't like trying to peel off the glue off the edge or any of that kind of stuff. Because if you do longer soaks, you'll get some of that dried on glue, especially if anything comes up over a underside of the disc. But yeah, I find that combination works out just fine for me, and then just kind of set it and forget it. Once I get it in there, I'm really, really careful about my sets. I really try to, like, if I kind of think about this, it's funny. I think about this clip from Gordon Ramsay cooking a steak, and he always says you lay the front here, right? You have the steak here, you lay it, and then you let it fall away from you. I always, for some reason, that always pops into my head. So I always get that front corner in, and then I just kind of slow push it down, and like I know when I nail it, I'm just like, boom, that's on there. And I don't really have a lot of trouble with it. Like I've never like pulled one and had nasty bubbles, or that always seems to go pretty well if I do it right. Nice. I typically don't even really torch the glue very much. I'm not a big torch guy either. Sometimes, but I don't mind if there's bubbles anyway. That's just part of the fun for me. That doesn't hurt me.
Exactly. Embrace the bubbles if there are any.
Yeah, sometimes they look really cool. I've done a couple where like I really like the bubbles, and I wish I could be more intentional. Like and put the bubbles there on purpose, and like do it in a way where I'm controlling it again, but in a considerate way. But sometimes they pop up and you're like, oh, okay, that's fun. Just another, just more flavor, I guess.
Yes. I like how you integrate your cooking themes into disc dyeing. It's fun and fascinating.
Yeah, I honestly never really put that together, but it is quite similar. And it all takes place in the kitchen, because that's about the only place I really have to do. It's kind of funny. I never really thought about it that way, but it is kind of similar in a way. Adding ingredients and yeah.
Do you like to cook or do you like to bake?
I'm fine with both, but I'm definitely more of a cook, just because baking's more of it's more chemistry, and you can't mess around as much basically. So cooking is a lot more room for improvisation and stuff on the fly. I'm a musician. I've been a musician my whole life, and when I play music, I'm usually the band leader. It's usually my compositions, but we also play like a lot of really loose improvisational stuff. We like to jam and stretch things out. So I'm the same way with cooking, like I like the freedom to be able to mess around with it and try different things. And that's also what's nice about glue, again, like I can set up the compass points the same way. I can try to control every aspect of it exactly how I want to, but at the end of the day, you never really know where it's going to go. You might just want to take it in some other direction. But yeah, I've always been more of a cook. I was a manager at restaurants. I did like semi-fine dining a little bit, but a lot of like pizza and other stuff. It's not all that glamorous, but definitely good skills that I did take into other aspects of my life in various ways.
Yeah.
And if you need some eggs, I'm your guy. You can cook you an egg any way you want, and with no issue.
Fantastic. I like mine over easy. So
there you go. Boom.
Do you have any tips or tricks or words of wisdom you'd like to give any disc dyers that are listening?
Okay. One of the things that I seem to run into, and I'm sure a lot of people are thoughtful enough about it to go and like watch podcasts and stuff, probably know this, but I find one of the things that people really slip out on is cleaning the disc beforehand. I get a lot of people say, oh, this didn't take, or it didn't take the way I wanted to, and that's always the first thing I ask them: did you wash that disc? And a lot of times the answer is no, or they took it out of their bag and maybe they rinsed it off, but there's still some dirt on there. So I try to go pretty heavy with that, and I'll do nice high quality Dawn dish detergent. I'll squirt it right on the disc and I'll rub it into the disc itself. So I don't like lather it up with like foam. I'll put the actual concentrated dish soap right on the surface of the disc. Really rub it in good and then rinse it off with nice hot water. And I'll do that when I get a disc in regardless, because it also helps to grip. That silicone, basically there's an oil, from what I understand, that's part of the molds that allows them to get the disc out of the mold, So that oil will definitely mess up your dies, and it also will make the disc feel slippery in the hand. And that's why a lot of, back in the day, people would be like, oh, this disc gets grippier as I use it. And it's like, no, you could have just washed it and had a similar effect. Yeah. That's one big thing that I like to mention to people. And then other than that, just like having an understanding of the color palette and how the different colors interact, and like what putting this color on top of this base color disc. Because again, I'm not dyeing a stack of 50 bottom stamped destroyers. I'm dyeing a yellow disc. I'm dyeing a green disc. Whatever it is, you have to know that, because if you just try to, yellow is famously tricky to get good colors, and there's only so much you can do with it. So I kind of just like, if it's a yellow disc, reds, oranges, and yellows, basically all I really do on that disc. And then so like having that basic understanding really goes a long way, because a lot of people, stuff you learn when you're 6 or 7 that you don't necessarily remember as a grown man or as an adult. So it's good to brush up on some of that stuff and just know, like, yeah, if I put this color disc in this bed, it's not going to look this, it's not a canvas here. It's a disc that has its own inherent color you have to worry about. So those are two big things that I recommend people to look into.
Righto. And shameless plug, we do have a masterclass on the Dyers Guild for color theory specific for disc dyeing.
That was very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
awesome.
go check that out. Cool Cat Dyes is the one that put that together.
Nice. Very cool.
So if you had to start disc dyeing today, is there anything that you would do differently knowing what you know now?
Yeah. I mean, knowing what I know now, I would go straight to cooler techniques than electrical tape and RIT dye. I would definitely go straight to glue if I could, and I'd be really good at it now if I started that in 2012. But yeah, just no, not really. I basically would try to get my hands on those nice bright neon colors sooner than later. I would definitely, make sure my discs are always nice and clean. I would definitely make sure I have a nice soak on them. All the stuff that I do now, but nothing major that I can think of that I would like. I don't regret any part of my, progression. That's for sure. Even like I tried to do lotion dyes. I completely failed at even just acquiring the lotion. I failed at that. So that's the baseline. And then, but after that, not only did I have a great time with it, but I have a video that's got like 50,000 views, and hopefully some people had a good time and go, hey, I have shampoo laying around. Let's go, get some of this RIT dye and see what we can do. So yeah, I don't really regret any aspect of it. It was all a lot of fun. I have a couple of discs I regret dyeing. I'll say that, discs I should have just left alone over the years, where I really wanted to dye something and I didn't have anything better. Like my first Ace disc, I dyed that for the video, for the electrical tape video. And it just looks terrible now. It looks so bad. It wasn't a great electrical, it wasn't the coolest design ever at the time. I did a really basic pinstripe just to demonstrate. So I regret dyeing that particular disc. I really wish I would have just gotten any other disc to make that video with at that time, or just made the video one disc sooner, because I had like 8 other ones that I had done right before that to teach learn the technique for myself and to develop it. But yeah, so I regret certain discs I dyed over the years, but that's about it.
Well, it's just the ugly child that only you love.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually bagging that disc again, too, which is funny. I haven't thrown it in a million years. I aced with it back in 2007, 2006, something like that. or no, I forget, 2009 maybe. I can't remember. That was my first Ace, and I just brought it out the other day to review it. My disc review number 300. I decided to do the Valkyrie because so many of us start with Valkyries. It was yellow DX Valkyrie is what I started with, and like so many other people. So I got a pair of those, like 170 yellow DX Valkyrie, like a red foil and a green foil. And I did a review on that for number 300. And I brought out the old 150 class pre-flight number that I dyed for that video, and it still flies awesome. It's terrible to find in the grass because it's like green and black, but it's a really good flyer still.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Justin. Well, I learned a lot about your dyeing and all the information that you have for that. The next section that we have is we're going to get to know you on a personal level now.
Oh, God. Turn off
so
the
first thing that we're going to do is favorite fave.
Okay.
So I know you like to cook, but what is your favorite food?
I would have to say eggs just because they're like my principal food source. I don't know what I would have eaten for breakfast for my entire life if I didn't have eggs. And there's just so many different things you can do with them, and they're so instrumental in so many different recipes. So overall, yeah, like it's really, really hard to beat like a good like English muffin and a poached egg or anything along those lines. I've always really liked eggs, so that's probably my go-to. And like I said, I'm really good at. I can cook them in just about any kind of way you might want. So there's a lot of variety in there.
I was going to ask, what's your favorite way to have your eggs?
I do a lot of poached for myself. I'll do just a lot of like quick scramble in the pan because I don't care that much either. But yeah, I like to make omelets, French omelets, like kind of Denny's style fold over omelets. All that kind of stuff. But for the most part, for myself, I do a lot of poached eggs. Poached eggs on toast, probably my favorite.
Deviled eggs is my jam when I have them. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. That's so funny. There's this like deviled egg theme in my life going on right now. It's hilarious that you just said that. That's so funny.
Nice. All right. What is your favorite beverage?
I pretty much drink water, and I have coffee in the mornings, and then I pretty much only drink water after that. I've been drinking some ginger ale because just to try to keep my voice dry, clean while I'm talking to you. But I do like beer. I'll drink beers on occasion. I haven't drank for a while now, but I do like the flavor of it. In terms of like what I find the most enjoyable to drink, like if I'm really thirsty, I like coconut water. I'll do a coconut water if I'm really thirsty. Or watermelon juice. You ever have like a pressed watermelon juice? So good.
I didn't know those existed.
Just you can get them like in a jar in like a bottle at Trader Joe's or whatever. That's just like pressed straight up watermelon juice. You can actually just chop up a watermelon and throw it in a blender and blend it up and drink it. It's delicious. It's super nice. But, if you have to kind of watch out for the seeds. If you can strain it if you want to. If you get little seeds in there or whatever. Delicious though. A little squeeze of lime. Really, really nice.
Well, that sounds really good on a hot summer day. It's
really good. And apparently watermelon has it's super hydrating as well. There's a lot of minerals and stuff. As you might expect. I mean, it's mostly just like water in a green, jar basically.
It is watermelon.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like a lot of beverages, but if I had to say like one thing besides water alone that I want to always be able to have is coffee. I like cold brew in the mornings. Mm-hmm. That's really my main beverage that I have, other than a ton of this Pacific Northwest water. I drink a lot of water. I try to, at least.
Yeah, water's good. Coffee's better.
Yeah.
So you said you are into music and a musician.
Uh-huh.
What is your favorite band or song or genre?
Oh God, I saw this on the topics list and I was horrified by it because trying to narrow it down.
That's why I said genre. If you
genre,
if you could even pick a genre.
Yeah, even then, I mean, damn, that's tough because there's a lot of the bands and artists I like don't even fit into one genre themselves, So it's hard to say. I grew up with a lot of like classic rock, Hendrix, Stones, Zeppelin. My dad had some funk records as well that I really liked, like Ohio Players, Earth, Wind and Fire. I would listen to a lot of that stuff on my own. I played Thriller to death as a kid on the record player. I also really liked Blue Oyster Cult. I listened to Don't Fear the Reaper. I knew how to find that track on the record and stuff. I used to listen to that.
Needs more cowbell.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, as I've gotten older, my own playing, a lot of it's kind of more jazz oriented, jazz funk type stuff. I try not to say funk because I feel like it's the most like incorrectly used word in the history of music, because like people think that everything that's like at all has any groove to it at all is like funk music, when it's really not. So I try to say more. I basically call what I play and what I write groove music, more or less. So it's just like very rhythmic oriented stuff. Obviously, writing it as a bass player, a lot of instrumental stuff. But in terms of my own taste, I mean, it goes in every direction you could possibly think of. Basically, I have a Spotify playlist somewhere that I set up for Upper Park, Team Upper Park. We have our Spotify playlists as part of the marketing thing that they do, and I did make one, and you can find it. I think it might even be linked in my bio or something. I'm not sure. That'll give you an idea of just how weird my musical tastes are, and how many different branches they go out to.
So, would it be easier to say what genres you don't like?
Yeah, that probably would be. I'm not a big fan of like modern pop country stuff. I'm not a big fan of modern hip hop stuff too much. I don't really listen to anything that's all that new. A lot of my stuff kind of starts back a little bit. I don't listen to anything super current. But yeah, I mean, I don't. But again, I may like it. I don't really like anything that's like super repetitive and just kind of sound. Every song sounds the same. I don't really like those kind of, those hip hop groups that just have the same beat over and over again. I can't really get into that. But
Yeah.
other than that, I'm pretty open. And if I like it, I like it, and I don't really worry about too much else around. The other. I spent a lot of time trying to, as a kid, you end up being more defined by stuff you don't like. Oh, we hate the Backstreet Boys, whatever. We hate NSYNC, but like, or whatever it was in those days, and I still don't like some of the bands I didn't like as a kid. I still don't like Limp Bizkit or Korn or any of those bands, but other than that, I'll circle back to all kinds of different things that I didn't think I liked at the time, and I like it now for whatever reason. It's strange too.
Yes. What instruments do you play?
Okay, so I played bass is what I'm best at. 10 times better at bass than I am at disc golf. I mean, just not even close. I would, I don't know. I'm absolutely at least 1,000 rated bass player. I'm like bottom level pro tour bass player, I would say. But yeah, not quite cracking the like 1030 range or anything. I'm not Eagle or Ricky of bass, but I'm not bad either. But yeah, I'm way better at bass than I am at. And I often wonder if I should have spent all this time making YouTube videos about bass instead. But music was, especially in those days, was a very angsty thing. It was just a lot of people saying a lot of negative things back and forth about each other. Music is, it was a different vibe in those days. But I digress. I also play guitar, even though it's kind of just like playing the same things I play on bass on a guitar. I have some variation that I can do, but I do play guitar, and then I also play drums. And like anything is an instrument to me in a percussive way. Like if I'm carrying a box up the stairs, I'm playing drums on it. It's nonstop. My wallet and keys in this pocket have been hi-hats for a long time. Stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm really really into drums right now. Though I've been playing my drums every day. I got them back in December. And I play them every single day. Just back there noodling around at least a few minutes or playing along to some tunes or whatever.
Wait, so you play an acoustic drum set in your apartment?
Yes. We have a kind of a cool setup here. The dude underneath us, like in the back room where I film and where I can play my drums, it's above his garage. So that's nice. He's not really in the garage, and if he is, he's like he's sawing stuff down there, making twice as much noise as I am or whatever. And then across the hall, it's a younger couple with a kid, and like they make a ton of noise as well. So like we're all kind of cool, I tell them, I texted them like, hey, if I'm ever bothering you, just tell me to shut up or whatever. It's cool. And I play with like plastic brushes a lot. I'm not bashing John Bonham back there with the full. I'm not playing full bore. Every once in a while, I'll pick up the sticks for a couple of minutes, but even for me, like just in that room, and I hit a cymbal with a stick, it's like it's jarring. So yeah, I'll definitely get those out of the house before I play with a lot of sticks. So I play brushes and mallets and stuff like that in the house.
So, what other hobbies do you have besides cooking, disc golf, playing music, filming YouTube videos?
I love swimming. Anything to do with getting in the water. Like I've already been swimming a couple times this year. You know, I swam in the Clackamas. Well, I didn't swim in the Clackamas, but I got into like my waist in March. You know, stuff like that. So I like being in the water. I've already been in the Clackamas, the Columbia, and the Sandy in this calendar year already. For a while, I tried to do at least 10 different bodies of water to swim or float in per year, but I haven't been able to quite cross that off for a couple years. I love to just be on the water in general. I fish. I'm getting back into fishing this year, which has been really fun. And even though I haven't caught anything yet on a few attempts, and then I have a paddleboard as well. I got a paddleboard, stand-up inflatable paddleboard last year on super closeout for like way, way, way below retail. And I happened to have the money at the time, something I always wanted, so I snagged it. And I just rock it like a sit-on-top kayak, and I love it. It's really nice to be out on the water. And I like to watch birds. You know, I like fishing. I like to be out in the woods. Again, I did a lot of hiking when I was younger. Some light trail running and that kind of stuff with my friends back in the day. But yeah, all that kind of stuff for sure. And then, I mean, tons of other stuff too. You know, I geek out about a lot of different things, as you might expect based on this conversation. But you know, I like action figures and the whole. People be like, "Oh, you know, you call yourself the disc golf nerd," but I didn't realize you were like nerd. I'm like, yeah, I am. I had Legos. I had Ninja Turtles. I have Star Wars. I still have 100 Star Wars figures. You know, in my closet or whatever. So like, yeah, the nerd is not just for disc golf. Yeah, it's prevalent throughout my life, basically.
So how did you come up with that name? I obviously kind of have a guess now that we talked, but
yeah. So the original name of the channel, and I don't know how that changed now because there's like handles or whatever. They just switched that up. So I'm not sure if it still displays anywhere. But the name of the channel was literally Discraft and Innova was the name of the channel. That was the only brands that existed at that time, other than like Lightning and Gateway, which kind of count, kind of don't count, especially at that time. Like it was like Gateway and then Innova. You know what I mean? It was like not even close. So yeah, the channel is called Discraft and Innova because the first video I made was a in the bag video. I liked watching them. There's a handful of other people making them, some pros. I watched Eric McCabe's, 2010 in the bag a million times and stuff like that. So that was I just made the name of the channel as I was setting up, and that's what I had in the bag was Discraft and Innova. So that's what it started as. And then as I started to kind of move away from Innova and mostly throw Discraft, I was like, this is kind of weird to have this still be my name. It doesn't really make sense. And then when I started wanting to do disc reviews, I was like, I need to have like a moniker or something. And again, that was not really that much of a thing in those days. This was still pretty early YouTube. So I kind of like just, I don't know, picked it. Disc Golf Nerd. It seemed to make sense. It kind of encapsulated the way I felt about stuff. I've always been very like, I'm not somebody to just do something super casually. Even if I'm doing something I've never done before, I want to understand like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And that's the way I approach everything. And I think that's why I have that aptitude to want to make tutorials about dyes and whatever it is, because I feel like I'm capable of communicating to people effectively how to do it and what they need to do to make it happen. So yeah, I think I just stuck with it then because I wasn't throwing Innova anymore, and it was a weird name of the channel to begin with. So that became my moniker, and I've been rocking it ever since.
That's
Even
awesome.
though there's a few other people using it, and there always have been. There have always been a few other people using it here and there, and I don't know, just kind of what it is.
Well, it's yours, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Like discgolfnerd.com is not me. I'm Disc Golf Nerd 1 on Instagram because regular Disc Golf Nerd is the same guy who owns discgolfnerd.com, and he hasn't done anything with either of them for God knows how long now. He was never active to begin with. He was just like, I think he had like some bag reviews or something. It wasn't like much. But yeah, I think that's all it was. I just needed to have some kind of a name, And I thought it worked pretty good. It seems to encapsulate what I've been doing with the channel, geeking out about stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think this next question is up your alley. If you had to play with 3 discs for the rest of your life on any course, what would those 3 discs be?
Oh, damn. That's tough. That's a tricky one because, you know, do you go the sentimental angle or do you go the, like, utility? You know, like, what are the 3 discs that are getting you the most coverage? I feel like I would pretty much have to burn one for some type of overstable approach disc, like a harp or something like that. I would have to have something like that in there because it's just such a clutch disc for upshots, you know, and it's such an important part of the game. I would probably go with a magnet overall for my putter and throwing putter just because I've thrown the most shots with soft magnets over the years. It's not a disc I really go to that much now, but I would miss it if I never could throw it again. And I know I can putt with it successfully and I can throw drives with it well. So maybe have to go with a soft magnet. For a mid-range, I would probably go with a Gobi just because I know I can throw it on a lot of shot shapes. And then I'd probably go with like some kind of a really neutral 9-speed, like an Escape or something like that I could throw on a lot of different lines. At least that's where my head goes, because then I have the overstability, even if it doesn't go very far with the harp. And then I have a nice throwing putter that I can throw flip ups with and like work through the woods and stuff. I can putt with that. And then a driver that's like not like a distance driver that I can't check up on. Yeah, I think that would probably work out pretty good.
So that's your final answer?
Yeah, we'll go with the only other disc that's even in contention that I might throw in there is my signature disc, which is this guy right here. This is like easily my favorite disc on the market right now. I'm just not sure I would pick this one because it's just kind of unique. So I'm not sure. Even though this disc has kind of bumped the Gobi out of my bag more or less, it's called a Defiant. It's a 3D printed disc. Oh, nice. So yeah, I would strongly consider having a Defiant in there. But if I had to go legacy, like long term, I think that's where I would go. I'd go Magnet, Gobi, and then like probably an Escape or maybe a Valkyrie or a Wraith or something like that.
Okay, so pardon my ignorance. What company makes the Magnet and the Gobi?
Gobi is Latitude 64 overmold. They made 3 overmold molds, or 3 or 4 or something. The Sarek, the Fuji, Bryce. I think they had an overstable one. I can't remember. So they had a few overmolds. They
really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. You know, word around town is whatever that like MVP didn't like it, and you know that was the end of it. But I don't know anything about that. But I can't confirm that, I guess. But that's what it seemed like to me. It's just like they made them. I don't think they made more than a couple of runs of Gobis from what I can tell, because I have some first runs and I have some other ones. There's only so many different colors that they were produced in, and that was it. You know, I don't think it was very popular either. So maybe Latitude just was just like nobody cares or whatever. I don't really know, but they were very short lived. But it's just such a good disc. It wasn't even one that I had on my radar, and DD sent me one to try out when they first released, and I still have that one. I threw it a ton. I just fell in love with it right away. It's kind of like. Not quite as understable as like a Fuse, but it's not quite as stable with as much fade as like an EMAC. So it's kind of somewhere in the middle there. It's super neutral, kind of low profile, and slightly understable, which is nice because I like to throw a lot of hyzer and I don't have a ton of arm speed. Just a disc I've thrown countless good shots with, though. Yeah, it's great. And then the magnet, soft magnet, is a Discraft disc. It's one of the oldest, you know, that they still make. It's been around for a really, really long time, and that was one of the earliest discs I ever got. And I've thrown probably more shots with that than anybody.
Nice. Well,
with any disc rather, not anybody. I'm sure somebody's throwing more magnets than me.
Well, those are the only 3 discs you can use from now on forever. So there's that.
Damn, yeah, that's gonna suck. I have so many that I like. You know, narrowing it down has always been the toughest part for me.
All right. Next section, the perfect hole. What has been your favorite course and or hole that you've played so far?
So my favorite course is a course called Stub Stewart State Park. It's the one I referenced getting that ace on earlier. It is in state park system here in Oregon, as most of our really good courses are. Like Milo McIver, the most famous Oregon, you know, the kind of the jewel of Oregon, where Beaver State Fling is contested, that course. That's in a state park as well. But Stub Stewart State Park is one of the newer state parks. It's actually a super popular place for mountain biking, which I've never really done, but It's just an epic, like mountainy, kind of up and down, super elevation course in this really dense, super quiet, like fern laden forest out here in the Pacific Northwest. Giant trees, ferns everywhere. Yeah, it's just really easy to lose a disc, but it's totally totally worth it because like you gotta want to use spotters on this course if at all possible because there's a lot of times where you'll throw a great shot and it'll be like right next to the basket even, and you'll look for it for like 5-10 minutes and it'll be like right underneath a fern, like perfectly tucked under there. But it's just beautiful, you know. Like the whole my favorite hole is hole 7 out there. That's the one that I've aced, and like you're throwing maybe 40 feet downhill, so it's like way down the hill and really sharp angle down the hill, and it kind of bends around the corner to the right. And sometimes you'll get down there and there's like little forest snails like crawling around the basket and the mulch around the basket. Big, you know, herds of deer running through there. There's people riding horses in the trails and stuff. So it's just a magical place that I super love. And it's funny, you know, you were talking about you're running this podcast, you're into dyes, but you haven't necessarily done a ton of dyes. It's my favorite course, but I've only played it, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times all the way through, if that even. But it's just something about it is so special. But a lot of times I go there, if it's just me and I'm solo, I'll play the first 9, maybe 10 or 12 holes, and then I'll head back out because it goes way deep into the woods there. And if I'm there on a weekday by myself or whatever, I don't want to twist an ankle back there or anything stupid because it's rugged, you know. There's a lot of hills and it's a real forest hike, you know, but it's sick. It's such a fun course. And I like any course that's like technical. I don't want to be throwing my distance driver as far as I can and then chipping into the green over. And that's not my fun. That's not my favorite thing at all. It's not something I find fun. I'd rather play short putter courses forever than have to play a long bruiser forever, easily. You know, give me ace runs and a couple of putters. I'll be happier doing that. And I just like the woods and technical golf. You know, I'm not a big fan of just maybe if I threw 500, 600 feet, it would be a different story. You know, of course, but yeah, even to watch it, you know, it's fun to see these guys throw big shots, but I'd rather watch them throw, you know, down tempo a putter on a rope through a gap and really control it. That's just more my style.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that. Do you have any courses that are on your bucket list that you want to play?
Probably be Maple Hill would be the top of my list in terms of places I want to go. You know, that's the one that's like right along Milo in terms of the ones that people really mention a lot in terms of like really, really famous tracks that are super well established and built from the ground up for disc golf, which I like as well. I'm really opposed to the whole like converted golf courses on the tour and stuff. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff. So those real disc golf courses with that, like, even though I guess Milo technically was like a not unofficial ball golf course at first, way before the disc golf course went in, from what I understand. But yeah, Maple Hill would be way up on the list of places I want to go. And then there's another course here right in Oregon that I just have not made it out to yet, which is called Whistler's Bend. That's known as like one of the sickest courses in the world, but I've never made the trek down there. It's decently far. Like I think it's like almost into California or so. So it's pretty out of the way for me. And the thing about Oregon is like we're in Portland here, and like the mountain and the beach and the Columbia River Gorge, there's like a ton of stuff that you can get to within like 2 hours or so. So to do that 5, 6, 8 hour trek, you know, I just haven't made it down there for whatever reason.
Right on. I'm assuming you have a decent amount of courses around you.
Yeah. It's not like crazy, but there's plenty. You know, I have a rotation of 5 or so that we play the most often. My home course is called Rooster Rock. Rooster Rock State Park. I've played there more rounds there than anywhere else, and it's just a place that we really love to be. Great bird watching. You can fish there. You can swim. You can hike. You can play disc golf, paddling, anything you want to do. So we play there a lot, or I play there a lot solo as well. You'll see it in a lot of my videos while I'm testing discs and stuff. And then in the Oregon State Parks we have Milo, we have Dabney, we have Rooster Rock, Stub, Fort Stevens out on the coast I haven't been out to yet. This looks really sweet. And then a whole bunch of other little ones here, here and there. some private tracks like Horning's Hideout is a really cool destination course that I would totally recommend to anybody in the area. It's real sweet. There's 3 18-hole disc golf courses there on the property, which is pretty dope. And they're all like up and down hills and very fun, even though like they go from short to super, super hard. They're all, in the same area and they all have a lot of elevation and stuff. That's what I like. I like to play elevation. People see a big fat guy. You probably don't think I like going up and down hills a lot, but I've done that plenty. And I really love to just throwing down a hill. There's just something so fun about that, And I love to just like check up on like a flippy putter and just like let it stand up and just work and float down the hill. That's just my favorite. I just love it.
Nice. Yeah. It's fun to see how far you can throw a disc down the hill.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you'll find that like the slower discs will go farther because they don't fade out. They just kind of hold on that like phase in between turning and fading where they just like kind of push straight. A soft magnet, like we were talking about, Discraft soft magnet is just flawless for that shot. It'll just float straight down the hill for days. It's just so fun to watch. It's really fun. So
nice.
Yeah, that's my thing though. Technical elevation when I can get it and when my body can handle it. If my knees bother me or something that day, I might not want to do too crazy. But I also love little dinky courses too. I have no problem playing little short. Got some guys think they're too cool to play a little putter course, pitch and putt, but I like that stuff. I think it's fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. The next section that I have is Dream Date. If you had to pick any pro disc golfer to play around with and hang out, who would it be and why?
Oh, this one's easy. I'm sure anybody who knows me in the channel would know this one. It's Wysocki all day. I've been a big Ricky Wysocki fan since I was first knew about him when he first kind of came into the sport. I met him way back in, I think, 2016. And like anytime I've run into Rick, he's just a really genuine character. He's very, very warm and friendly to everybody he interacts with. And whether he just lost a playoff, 10 minutes later, he'll be signing discs for kids and like have a big smile on his face. Like he's just always been somebody I've looked up to in the sport. I really like Ricky. I met him. I have actually played a hole with him at a tournament once. They were doing like a sake bomb challenge. And he was like stationed on one hole, and every group that came through he would play the hole with them. Totally big putted me. Cost me the event. I shit you not. Hilarious. It was the only PDGA tournament I ever entered in my life. It was a C tier sake bomb challenge. I lost in a playoff of that. I took a bogey on the hole we played with Ricky because I threw kind of a weak drive. I kind of threw a grounder. I was like a little nervous with him standing there. Throw a grounder, upshot not that great. He throws a rock that goes past the basket, ace running the basket, and then goes out of bounds. He's like 70 feet away, on this like basketball court. Takes his meter in, boom, drains the 70-footer in front of all of us like nothing for the easy par. And then I have to putt my 20-footer or something, and he just totally big putted me, and it was like knee knocking, and I just hit the band, and I lost by one stick. So had I just played a par, just got a 3 on that hole, I would have won my only PDGA event ever.
Nice.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I got to meet.
It's a fun story.
Yeah, I got to meet him last year briefly. He's a lot taller than I was expecting.
Yeah, he's a big boy. Yeah, he's pretty big. Yeah, he's really like the first time we met him. It was like a signing at Played Against Sports, I think, and just like a big kid, he was just goofing around. We were playing Nerf basketball and stuff. He was just like a really fun person to be around. And he was young at that point. Obviously he's not. He's considerably younger than I am. But yeah, every time I've run into him since, like he's always just seemed like the same person. He doesn't seem to like change much. He's always super goofy. And it's really funny because in the early days, he was really intense on the course. In like 2014 Worlds, if you go back and watch that stuff, like he was really angry. He didn't talk to anybody. He was very like focused, tunnel vision. And now you see more of his natural personality come out over the last few years where he has some more fun out there. But he used to have this weird like Jekyll and Hyde where he was like super intense. And then like 10 minutes later, he's goofing around and just like, just really funny and silly. Interesting character. But yeah, Ricky's easily my favorite player who I'd probably want to play around with more than anybody. And I'd probably just go to Stub, I guess, unless Rooster Rock would be that would be fun. Take Ricky to Rooster Rock. We'll do a dip, maybe a sunset. Maybe a little steak on the hill there with the sun on the river. It'd be wonderful.
All right, Justin. I learned a lot about your dyeing and a little bit more about you, and I hope you guys got something out of this as well, because I know I did. So Justin will be raffling off one of his discs. So if you want to explain a little bit more about that.
Okay, this is something I'm really excited about too, and if I had one that was dyed up, cool. Like I said, if I wasn't out of glue, I would dye one up for you guys, but you can dye it yourself. This is a 3D printed disc. It's by a company called NSH Custom Discs, right? The disc is called a Defiant, and if you look at it here, you can see it's like board flat, totally flat, and it's got this big chunky rim that kind of slopes down. I hope you're getting a look at that, but plenty more information on my channel about these if you're interested. But it's a super fun disc to throw, and it's really interesting because it's low speed stable, high speed very understable. But if you like to throw on a hyzer, it will flip up super straight for a while, but it'll still have quite a bit of reliable fade at the end. So I throw a ton of shots with these, and you can dye them any color that you want. They take dye great. I know that NSH works with a few different dyers that have dyed their stuff, and it definitely takes dye. So this one, we did my signature one since I like disc dyes. It's clear. The top is clear, so you can see me through there. The top is clear, and then the back is white, so it'll actually almost look like there's depth to it, and you can dye these any color that you want into that clear plastic. And the rim is white as well, and that will also take dye. So I will auction off one of these, or raffle off one of these, and either one right out of my personal stash, or I can just have NSH Custom Discs print a brand new one and send it out to whoever wins.
That's awesome, and a very unique disc. So
yeah, this is one I dyed with lemon zest, just so you can see how it takes the color. If you want to make flat color, you can do that too.
Fantastic.
Sweet.
So you can win that unique disc for as little as $1. So 100% of the proceeds will be going to Justin. So if you want to help support him in his dyeing habits and his other YouTube channel habits, again, all the money will go back to him, and you get a chance to win this really unique disc that I'm almost positive that you've never thrown something like this before.
Yeah,
so
it's really not like anything else on the market, which is another thing I really like about it. It's just a really interesting and interesting disc to throw. It's very, very strange, but it's really fun, and I genuinely get a ton of birdies with it. I don't know what it is, but it's just a magnet for the basket for me. I park that thing constantly.
Awesome. So that raffle will go live when this podcast gets released, and it'll be open for 2 weeks. So if you head to dyersguild.co/raffle, that is where you can go to get entered to win.
Sweet. And if I do have glue by the time whoever wins, I'll dye it up for you if you want it. No extra charge. I don't mind at all.
Fantastic.
Yeah, right on.
So where can people find your dye discs and the other stuff that you do?
Okay, I don't have any an Etsy page or anything like that. If I ever sell dyes, it's usually on a pretty casual basis through my Instagram, or occasionally I'll put them on eBay. I auctioned one off on eBay for charity with my last tutorial video, which was pretty cool. But yeah, just Disc Golf Nerd, Disc Golf Nerd 1 on Instagram. Disc Golf Nerd Dyes is my Instagram for my dye page, and also share work from other artists and stuff. Not as active on there as I once was, just because I'm not dyeing as much as I typically do. But yeah, the main page, Disc Golf Nerd 1, is much more active. A member of Team Upper Park, which is huge. They've been awesome. Amazing bags, amazing company that they've been really great to work with. So anybody who wants to support me, Disc Golf Nerd 10 gets 10% off anything you need from Upper Park. Same thing for NSH Custom Discs. If you want to try any of their other molds, Disc Golf Nerd 10 will get you 10% off anything you want from them. Or you can buy the Defiant straight out of the link in my bio. And then, yeah, just the YouTube channel is just Disc Golf Nerd, at Disc Golf Nerd, I think is the handle. Or I forget if there's a 1 or whatever. But if you search Disc Golf Nerd, you will find it. There's 800 videos or plus at this point. So just stay away from the old ones. You've been warned. They're not good. Don't do it.
All right. Well, again, I greatly appreciate you being on this podcast. I had a good time. And
yeah, man, that was really fun.
Yeah. All right, guys. Until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Later.